Hey, it's Ann from NanLovesFood, and today we are working on meal 3 for our March Prep and Plan With Me series. This is our beef stroganoff, which I am super excited for. It just feels like it's gonna be a warm hug on this very cold and dreary day. So this is gonna be pretty simple. It's not gonna take us any time to throw together at all, but it will have that all day flavor, which is just so awesome that we can do a meal that tastes like we've been cooking it all day in probably less than 15 minutes. Here, we're gonna throw it together. No fuss at all. So I do have water started back here. I'm gonna boil some egg-free ribbons. These are just egg noodles without the egg. So gonna get those going back here, and then we have our saute pan warming up here so we can get our stroganoff started right here. All right, we've got a little bit of oil going at the bottom of our pan, and now we're just gonna take our little slices of beef. This is to pound them out, but since we slice them nice and thin, we really don't need to do that. So we're just gonna sear these for about 30 seconds. Our beef is working, we're getting a nice color on that. I'm gonna throw some green beans. These are just like already cut and trimmed, ready to go green beans from the store. I'm gonna throw these in the toaster oven. I have a Tovala, so it steams and bakes at the same time. You could certainly, if you don't have one of those, just throw it in a saute pan. All right, I lied, these are not trimmed, so I'm gonna have to go through and snap this off. So I'm just taking the green beans, I'm gonna salt them and throw a couple of tabs of butter on top before I toss them in the toaster. Okay, now that we've got our meat all seared, we are gonna throw in our onion. We've developed all kinds of delicious brown bits of flavor on the bottom of this pan from searing that meat. The liquid that these onions release is gonna help get that up and into our delicious sauce that we're making. We're also gonna add a couple of tablespoons of butter. All right, now that that is starting to get cooked, we're gonna add in a couple of tablespoons of flour. We're gonna make a quick roux here. So normally I would season this step, but because we are using better than bouillon, which can be very salty, I'm gonna go ahead and not do that yet. So we will salt to taste as we need to. So it's just gonna take a minute for that flour to cook out. If you were adding mushrooms, you would have added them before the flour, but I am not. So we're gonna move straight onto the beef stock. So I'm actually gonna use water because we're using the better than bouillon. And the recipe calls to just kind of add a little bit. Just add a little bit and scrape up that goodness. And you can see the magic that's already happening. So we're making sure to scrape all the goodness off the bottom of that pan because that's what's gonna give this sauce so much flavor. So 1 teaspoon of the better than bouillon, which I'm using the reduced sodium one that they sell at Costco. This is the big guy, the beef. So we need 2 tablespoons in there. And I know this stuff looks really strange. Does not look appetizing at all, but I assure you it is delicious. Do you guys have kitchen appliances that constantly yell at you? Because I feel like I'm constantly being yelled at by mine. The recipe calls for a tablespoon of Dijon. I'm just using this one. And then 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. I'm eyeballing and I'll adjust as needed. Now the recipe specifically said that it will look like your sauce is breaking, but that don't worry about it. The sour cream is just kind of melting in. So that's part of what we're doing here. This looks a little runny to me. And I measured all the things that matter. I measured the liquid. So we're gonna see how this turns out. And as I'm waiting for this to come together, I'm always cleaning as I go. I'm gonna put stuff back in the fridge, get organized here, put dirty dishes in the sink. That is one of the ways to keep weeknight meals totally doable, is when you don't leave a huge mess for yourself to clean up at the end. And as you get more confident in the kitchen, it will be easier and easier to just kind of have an instinct for when stuff needs your attention and when it doesn't. So don't feel bad if you're at a stage of cooking where you're not super comfortable with that, but make that a goal for yourself, that you kind of develop that intuition as you go. So the green beans just beeped. Those are ready to go. I'm gonna chop up some green onions and just put them in a little bowl so I can top the stroganoff with those when we're all done here. So the way I do this, a cheater method, so you don't have to do a whole cutting board, is I just use kitchen shears. And you can see me over here. I'm just gonna like cut these right into the bowl like this. And these are a little like sad and droopy right now, but that's okay. They'll still add a little bit of color, a little pop of freshness. If you cut them on an angle like this, they look fancy. Parsley would also be great to top this, I'm sure. All right, this sauce still looks broken, but we're gonna trust the process and go ahead and add our beef back in. This is supposed to cook with the beef in it for another minute or so, and that's supposed to be it. So full disclosure, I've never cooked this recipe before. It had Ina Garten's name on it, so I trusted that it would be a good one, but I'm wondering if some of the proportions got messed up somewhere because this is way too thin. Really, this should be more of a gravy consistency. And this is soup. One of the most important skills you can learn in a kitchen is how to improvise when things go wrong. And recently I showed you guys a trick to make a roux in the microwave. And so that's what we're gonna do to try and save this, because I don't think, this is not gonna get better. You know, we can either serve this as soup or do something to fix it. So we're gonna fix it. Okay, so I'm kind of glad this happened because this will just show you, like, even if you're a professional and you follow the recipe, I mean, truly the only thing that I didn't measure here that would have any relevance at all is that sour cream. And I got pretty darn close to 2/3 of a cup. So when this happens to you, which this will happen to you, don't take it personally. This is not a fault of you. Any idiot can put out a recipe on the internet. I'm not necessarily saying that this is this recipe's fault. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I did something wrong, but maybe I didn't. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is that we have dinner on the table, right? So I'm gonna use that trick to make a roux in the microwave, and we're gonna use that roux to thicken this up so that we can save our weeknight meal. So I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of a neutral oil. This is peanut, but whatever works. We're gonna put that in a little ramekin here. And this is serious weeknight cooking. I'm glad my husband's running a little late today. Hey look, it's this morning's coffee. Whoops. Okay, I'm gonna mix that oil and that flour up together. And we're just gonna zap it for about 45 seconds. And what that's gonna do is it's just gonna take that raw taste out of the flour. And hopefully this 4 tablespoons of roux will be enough to thicken up our stroganoff and save the day. All right, so this flour is definitely cooked off a little bit. It's nice and warm and bubbly. And we're just gonna add that into our stroganoff. And if this isn't enough, we'll do it again. Okay, that is making a difference. It's not nearly as soupy as it was. It's still pretty darn soupy though. I did turn up the heat a little bit as well. So this cooking is gonna, you know, some of the water is going to evaporate, but we're not gonna go from soup to gravy in a reasonable amount of time here, especially when this is supposed to be done. So our green beans have beeped. They are all done. I did throw a couple of tablespoons of water in there just to help them cook, but those look delicious. All right, brought this back up to a boil, and now things are happening. So this is definitely more of a sauce. So you can see it's still pretty runny, but that sour cream has melted down some too, which wasn't happening before. So I'd say we're pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead and taste this for salt since we didn't add any before. I'm positive this needs some black pepper. Okay, here's a kitchen hack. If you wanna taste your food and you're having guests over and you don't wanna use 14 spoons to taste it, rather than dunking your spoon back into your soup 1,400 times, which if it's just for me and my family, I absolutely do. But if I'm having guests or whatever, certainly when I was cooking in professional settings, you know, you don't want to do that. So what you can do, rather than just like getting a new spoon every time, which some people do, you just put a little on your spoon and you keep this as your dirty spoon and you don't touch. And you don't touch. Oh, that's really yummy. It just needs a little bit of salt. And just like that, dinner is done. Even with a little mishap in the mix. All right, so I have our egg noodles and our green beans right here. And we are just gonna scoop this stroganoff right out on top. Sprinkle with a little bit of green onion and there you go. Dinner is served. All right, let's give this a try. The meat is nice and tender, and other than that, it's a pretty simple meal. It's good. It's not the best I've ever had, but it's totally fine. And on a weeknight, this will definitely fit the bill. So thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're not subscribed, please go and do that, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.